Welcome to the Longevity Current. I'm Aleks Singer, here with my co-host Tom Varney, and we're speaking from Longevity San Juan, a 501c3 nonprofit building the biotech hub of the future here in Puerto Rico.
At Longevity San Juan, our mission is to accelerate breakthroughs in longevity and regenerative medicine by connecting science, capital, and culture, and to make Puerto Rico a home for the next generation of biotech innovation.
Our guest today is Yuri Deigin, co-founder and CEO of YouthBio Therapeutics, a company pioneering epigenetic reprogramming.
In this conversation, we'll explore how close we are to making aging reversible and what it really means to engineer youth.
Yuri, welcome to the Longevity Current. To start, you're a computer scientist by training. How does that shape how you think about biology?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And to answer your question about how my computer science background framed my thinking about aging, I think in general, having a computer science background makes you approach a lot of the things in life in this kind of problem-solving fashion where you're trying to figure out the algorithm and hopefully try to improve the algorithm. If we're talking about aging or biology in general, we obviously see so many inefficiencies because, of course, biology is code, but it's kind of accidental code that evolution just kind of stumbled upon, and its infinite wisdom or maybe infinite just tinkering with, I guess, the code as being kind of DNA, where evolution just finds ways to through trial and error to kind of optimize for its problem, which of course for I guess evolution is just creating copies of the genes and ensuring that these genes survive for as long as possible. So but I guess for us as kind of creatures of evolution that then figured out our limitations of biology, aging being one of them, we of course want to solve that problem. And for me personally, I do approach it as a problem to be solved, and maybe also my computer science background has something to do with me thinking that aging is programmed, which is among the longevity science is probably the minority view. I think most aging scientists think aging just wear and tear, accidental stochastic process that somehow evolution just couldn't figure out a way to get rid of. But I think actually evolution did not actually optimizes for a particular lifespan, and I think evolution actually programmed aging into the genomes of the species, and actually the lifespan is adapted to a particular ecological niche for a given species. And this is a whole other debate that's been raging in the longevity science about program aging, about kin selection, group selection, and all that for many years. And but of course, once I came to it, maybe my computer science background kind of predisposed me to fall into the programmed camp. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess that's the short version.
Thank you, that does. In the same line of questions, if we think about aging as an engineering problem, what is the equivalent of Moore's law for biology? And perhaps for our readers who don't have a computer science background, if you could also briefly state what is Moore's law as well.
Sure, I'll try. I guess from what I understand, Moore's law is that our ability computational ability doubles every 18 months or something. Okay, I guess let's just Google it. So Moore's law is the observation that the number of transistors on an integrated circle doubles approximately every 2 years. Yeah, so I guess basically in a nutshell that our computational ability as, I guess, kind of humanity doubles every 18 months, I think, is like from what I remember from my computer science days. So basically our ability to solve problems computationally grows exponentially, doubling every 2 years, 18 months. I don't know if there is a similar thing in biology or in definitely not in aging. I mean, we've been trying to extend lifespans scientifically for probably close to a century now, and we're still not much farther along than just caloric restriction, basically limiting calories for mice and rats, and that at the most gave about 50% lifespan extension in rodent models, and that didn't even translate into something interesting in primates, because in primates they tried this in monkeys, in macaques. They tried caloric restriction for years with them from an early age, and the best they could do is like a 10% lifespan increase, which I don't think it's worth it starving yourself for like 2/3 of your life just to get 10% extra of miserable life. So and then we just have, I guess, rapamycin is kind of the best in class small molecule extension for kind of wild type mice, which are just, it basically gives you like 15 to 20% lifespan increase. Recent testing by Aubrey in this robust mouse rejuvenation gave also like 15% rapamycin, and then he tried a whole bunch of different therapies, combination therapies, and they didn't do much better than rapamycin. So as a field, a longevity field, I don't think we're anywhere close to having anything near Moore's law. We're still stuck in that kind of 15% to maybe 50% lifespan increase for rodents, for mice or rats, and that's really not impressive. But in terms of, I guess, our maybe computational ability for like biology, bioinformatics, and just data mining for biology, I mean, those abilities definitely have increased, but that's probably not kind of relevant to our conversation. For our conversation, in terms of lifespan increase, we're still nowhere near the curve that computational ability is enjoying.
Why do you think aging is primarily epigenetic rather than damage driven?
Well, maybe it goes back to my computer science roots, but it's just the observations from nature that I'm aware of. Just to me, they kind of highlight the primary role of epigenetics as the driver of the aging process, especially in mammals, but actually also in other species. Like if we look at like social insects, for example, we see that their lifespan can vary significantly by like orders of magnitude depending on the social role, but also even within the lifespan of a single individual, like a single, say, jumping ant, Indian jumping ant, their lifespan can vary based on and get reprogrammed, epigenetically reprogrammed based on their social role. So if they start out like a worker ant, but then the queen ant dies and they need to take up the breeding duties, a worker ant is going to turn into this breeder, a gamergate, and its lifespan is going to increase significantly. So this basically epigenetically, through epigenetic mechanisms, this single individual will greatly increase its lifespan by just switching social roles. So obviously this tells me there is this potential for much increased lifespan, but it's being epigenetically withheld for this particular social role, as it is for basically in other social animals between like worker ants and breeder ants or bees or termites. And then we have all those other examples. One of my other favorites is monarch butterflies, where depending on the season where they're born, they live either just for 1 month, or if they actually have to go to Mexico for the winter, they can live for up to 9 months. So again, these are epigenetic mechanisms that determine whether they live basically an order of magnitude less. And so then, if we go to mammals and to humans, we have these epigenetic clocks that we see ticking in pretty much all mammals now. Steve Horvath has analyzed, I think, close to all mammalian species known to us, except for some Australian marsupials. Steve was actually asking if there's any volunteers willing to go to Australia and bring him some samples. But he has epigenetic clocks for like 200 plus species of mammals, and he has shown great conservation, evolutionary conservation of these epigenetic clocks. So you can actually build a pan-mammalian epigenetic clock, and it shows that there's this aging clock that ticks throughout life, and it starts ticking pretty much after fertilization at conception and goes on ticking until death. And the fascinating thing is that in the initial stages of development, like embryogenesis and maturation, this clock is ticking at exponentially quicker pace than the remaining like 90% of life history. So, and it's also very interesting to me that in mammals in general, 10% of our life history is reserved for this sexual maturation, basically development and sexual maturation. And during this initial 10% of life history, this clock is ticking exponentially faster than the remainder 90%. So basically mammals have this conserved life history program, but the only difference being the ticking rate. So, I think evolution just kind of optimizes the ticking rate depending on the ecological niche of a given species, but the overall life history program remains the same. And so it doesn't matter if you're a mouse living 2 years or a whale living 200 years, your kind of life history trajectory is very similar. And to me, this is fascinating. And again, confirming my view that aging is programmed, and this basically, the aging program is a continuation of the development program, and basically after development finishes, all the processes keep going, and then eventually they turn detrimental and they actually start setting us up for eventual decline and eventual death. Evolutionary reasons for why evolution might pick that is a whole different conversation, but in terms of why I think that aging is epigenetically programmed, I think this is enough for to answer this question.
One of my friends was talking to me after your event in San Juan the other day, and I told her about the jumping ant example, and she said, I want to be that ant. So I think a lot of us feel that way. We want to be that ant that lives, several years instead of several months, especially if we could become that halfway or even towards the end of our lifespan. That would be really exciting. So I do want to ask you about YouthBio specifically, because we're very excited to hear what you've been working on to help prevent aging of the human brain. Could you tell us briefly what is the purpose of YouthBio specifically, and then what's the most recent thing you've been working on?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So at YouthBio, we are translating this paradigm of partial reprogramming, where reprogramming is the use of Yamanaka factors to turn cells into pluripotent embryonic stem cells. This was a discovery by Shinya Yamanaka back in 2006, and he got a Nobel Prize for it, basically showing that cell identity is very malleable, and you can change pretty much any cell all the way back to this ground state of development, this pluripotent stem cell state. And also the fascinating thing about reprogramming that was a very happy coincidence for the aging field is that during reprogramming, cells are fully rejuvenated. So any hallmarks of aging that cells kind of collect during aging, after they're reprogrammed, they're reset. All those hallmarks are reset, and the cells are physiologically rejuvenated. And so this is what started this process called partial reprogramming, where aging scientists try to essentially harness this rejuvenating potential of reprogramming and trying to see, can we just use the initial stages of reprogramming, which get us this rejuvenating blast, but not let reprogramming proceed further, because we want to preserve cell identity. We want to use this in vivo in the context of already formed organisms, and basically enjoy the rejuvenating aspects of the process without any cell identity changing aspects that might stop the cells from doing their work, because we need our cells to continue being what they initially are. Like our liver cells, we want them very much to remain liver cells and keep doing their work. Otherwise, we can have liver failure and die. So that's why partial reprogramming tries to be very careful in only enabling the reprogramming process for a few days, just the initial stages of reprogramming, which preserves cell identity, but also gets the initial rejuvenating aspects of reprogramming, with the goal of essentially epigenetically rewinding the cell back to a more functional state, a state associated with younger cells. So this is the coveted rejuvenation that we're trying to get out of the reprogramming process, and this is what's called partial reprogramming. And at YouthBio, this is essentially what we're trying to translate. And translating means just creating therapies based off of the science. And so we're working on specifically brain therapies. So we're trying to be laser focused on a specific organ first, with the goal of eventually targeting multiple organs and then having a combination therapy where we can target several organs at the same time, kind of key organs that can produce measurable systemic rejuvenation for a healthy person. But our initial step is just focusing on the brain, and within the brain on a specific neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's disease, where we're trying to see whether partial reprogramming can actually slow down this pathology, the pathology of Alzheimer's, and maybe even potentially reverse it, which is our ultimate goal for this therapy, reversing Alzheimer's. And this is what we've been working on for the past 4 years, and we're actually quite close to getting into the clinic, the first human trials. So we just had recently a positive FDA Interact meeting where they've agreed that we have sufficient proof of concept data in mice, and we have proof of concept data in an Alzheimer's mouse model. So the next step for us is just safety studies in animals, and if those safety studies are okay, there's no issues, we can then proceed to human trials of Alzheimer's patients. So hopefully if everything goes according to plan, within a couple of years we should have first patients being dosed with our therapy.
Well, that's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're very excited to see what happens in those trials as well. I am curious, in terms of bottlenecks and what would make this go even faster, because, of course we want this as soon as possible. If you could wave a magic wand and just change one bottleneck, whether it's, regulatory, financial, in the science itself, if you could just change one small thing that would accelerate your work the fastest, what would it be?
Wow. Well, everybody, I think, talks about funding being kind of the bottleneck, and definitely I think longevity science is severely underfunded. And for us, of course, as well, funding is a critical resource. But if I had a magic wand and could change something like in biology or like gene therapy development, this would be probably delivery. Like I would love to have a way to deliver our gene therapies selectively and with high efficiency, basically target in a selective manner just the cells that we want to target, and a huge percentage of those cells. Because right now, for example, like if we have direct delivery to the brain, we are somewhat limited by the diffusion of the vector. So we need to have multiple injection sites. We're talking about a big brain, like primate brain, human brain. But if we had a mechanism that could just wave a magic wand and like all your cells in the brain and the target area, or maybe the whole brain, and maybe just the neurons, if you want to target the neurons, get your therapy in them, and all the other cells that you want to avoid don't, that would be amazing. I don't know how close we are to that. Maybe eventually we could get there through these like ultrasound guided delivery mechanisms where you could somehow guide your vector to the brain through non-invasive mechanisms, and only have it released in the target areas and not get released in the areas you want to avoid. But we're still far away from that as a field of just general gene therapy field, not just partial reprogramming. So if I had one magic wish, that I'd use it for that. But being living in the real life, funding is probably our current number one resource we could use to accelerate our pace and just paralyze a lot of things that right now, because of limited resources, we have to do one by one. But if we had much more money, we could paralyze many different programs, including neurodegeneration programs, and this would really speed things up for the entire partial reprogramming field.
Are you working on improving delivery methods yourself as a company, or is it outside your scope and you're just hoping that a bunch of other startups pop up that do this?
Yeah, exactly. We're just waiting for somebody else to solve delivery issues. And I mean, the current delivery state of the art for gene therapies is okay. We see, for example, the recent Huntington therapy producing very impressive results with the current delivery mechanisms, which is exactly the same mechanism we plan to use at YouthBio for Alzheimer's. This stereotactic injection, MRI-guided stereotactic injection with convention-enhanced delivery, which, it's okay. It's not perfect. It's far from the magic wand state that I'd love to have, but it works, and the patients have enjoyed measurable therapeutic benefits. And so if it's good enough for Huntington's, it's good enough for Parkinson's. There's multiple Parkinson's therapies that use this delivery mechanisms. I think it would be good enough for Alzheimer's as well. But of course, we'll see after the clinical trials. But and yeah, we're definitely counting on all these gene therapy delivery companies having breakthroughs. But we can only work on one problem at a time, and we're just doing our partial reprogramming bit.
I would say hearing that you're not working on the delivery problem is actually a great opportunity. If I were a young baby startup founder, I'd be like, oh, yes, I have a great idea now, and I have a first customer in Yuri. So if you're just fresh out of college and interested in longevity and you want a startup to pursue, it seems like a lot of these companies want you to start to figure out the delivery problem. So there you go. There you go. Although it's all about the execution, right? So another question for you, Yuri. So I'm curious, how much inspiration do you draw that keeps you going in this from other adjacent industries? Like, are you inspired by, SpaceX or DeepMind or other companies doing things even outside of longevity, and do those help fuel you?
For sure, yeah. I'm definitely inspired by how entrepreneurs who didn't know better, didn't listen to the conventional wisdom, like Elon Musk with like SpaceX, for example, or even Tesla, just didn't give a damn what other people think and just decided they're going to try it, and they've gotten so far along and basically changed the world, definitely with SpaceX and these. I think these very kind of selective individuals are really driving the world forward, the progress of the world forward. And this is really what inspires me and inspired me to just tackle partial reprogramming. I mean, I was the first guy to start a company dedicated to translating partial reprogramming back in 2017, when everybody else thought this is not something you could use in vivo, or definitely not something you could put in humans. But I just disagreed, and I didn't listen to conventional wisdom. And now here we are looking back. I definitely was proven right, because there's so many partial reprogramming companies tackling different diseases, different organs, and there's a human clinical trial starting soon, hopefully with YouthBio and their ophthalmological indications, and Turnbio, Altus Labs with their billions of dollars. So I think. It's great to see that my insight, while wasn't shared in 2017, is about partial reprogramming having so much potential, is now fully shared by visionary investors like Sam Altman, like Jeff Bezos, like Brian Armstrong, and many others. So yeah, definitely drawing inspiration from all these crazy bastards like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs.
It's funny that you mentioned Sam Altman. I was at the Progress Conference last week, and Sam Altman spoke. He was one of the keynote speakers, and he said, "Shame on me if I am not the first CEO replaced by a fully AI CEO." What do you think about being replaced by a fully AI CEO at YouthBio?
Sure, all the power to the AI, our AI overlords coming to rule over us, and it seems that this is where the world is moving, unless there's some sort of regulation preventing this from happening. AI is just gonna take over pretty much all the jobs, so that definitely these kind of like intellectual jobs, where really all the work you're doing is just writing emails and analyzing data. And even now already, at YouthBio we're leaning heavily on current LLMs for our pretty much everything, like in terms of regulatory analysis, our study plans, study protocols. We're definitely kind of checking with AI consultants, like whatever before we needed to pay human consultants for. Now it's just basically you can use AI to double check, because AI is really so knowledgeable these days that they have all the knowledge that before you really had to pay a lot of money for, and now it's pretty much just free, including in your ChatGPT subscription. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think this is where things are going. And hey, if an AI can do this job better than I can, all the power to it. And hopefully it'll get those therapies to humans as quickly as possible. But so far, as long as it's not yet the case, I still have to do my bit.
So here's a bit of a spicy question, and feel free to refuse to answer. It's okay to decline, or we could even cut out your answer afterwards if you change your mind. But if you could test one forbidden experiment without any ethical constraints to learn something about the science, what would you want to know? And imagine here that you get to do this experiment, find out the results of the science, and then reverse the clock back in time as if it never happened, except you keep the knowledge. Okay? So there's no consequences for this. What would you do?
Actually, this is an experiment I've been talking about for years now. This is and this could disprove the hypothesis that aging is programmed and controlled by the brain, which I think the brain, like in the hypothalamus, there's some sort of master control center, not just for our day-to-day processes, but also for aging. And so the experiment will be just swapping heads between a young animal and an old animal, and seeing if the old head on a young body will quickly re-age this young body, or whether a young head on an old body will rejuvenate that body, which would kind of provide evidence for the controlled programmed aging hypothesis. Or if not, if this doesn't happen, if kind of the young body continues working fine even with an old head, this would refute the hypothesis that aging is coordinated by the brain. And so this is actually an experiment. You could do it in mice, and hopefully somebody would do it. I don't think it has any ethical concerns. It's just one of many potential aging experiments that we're doing on animals anyways, but it's just technologically hard to do. So right now it probably might still take some time, but this is something that I really want to see. And of course, down the line, this could be really important for the replacement paradigm. There's this replacement paradigm for that longevity companies are pursuing. They're basically trying to see if we can just grow our organs or even replacement bodies that we could later just swap our heads with, or basically grow a body without a head or without a brain that we can eventually just transplant our own head on, and this would give us like a young body. So this would be like a full body transplant. And so this question is really critical to seeing if this is feasible, because if aging is indeed controlled by the brain, even if you put your old brain on a new body, this might not really help you defeat aging. So this is, to me, a very important experiment to do.
Off with their heads.
Yeah, exactly. So I know there's historical precedents, even in humans, where they've done full head replacements or putting it on another body. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular case. It may have been a few years back. But if that precedent's already there, what's stopping you from, for example, at YouthBio, from going that route with mice immediately to start testing these hypotheses?
I'm actually not aware of any experiments in humans with swapping heads. I know there's this Italian surgeon, Sergio Canavero, who wanted to do this on this Russian guy. I think Vitaly Spiridonov was his name. He was paralyzed, and then he got really famous when he announced that he's willing to be this first kind of patient to do the head transplant. And then he found some love, he found a girlfriend, and he married, and then he decided he's not going to do the head transplant. So he's enjoying life now. I think he's got kids with this girl. So he's leading a happy life with his existing body. But I know Sergio Canavero announced that he's going to do this, but to my knowledge, he never actually went through with it. And they did do some experiments on mice, to my knowledge, and replacement, just head, transplanting one head to a different body. And there's these famous photos of mice of different color, black head on a white mouse body. And yeah, and I don't know if they actually managed to do all the proper spinal fusion, and actually this field is developing. Recently I saw on Twitter Micah Mills was posting some pigs, I think it was, or guinea pigs, or basically they were successfully refusing their restoring fusion of their spine. They weren't replacing heads yet. They were just severing the spinal cord connection and then restoring it, and they were able to show like a restoration of function, and they were able to walk again. And so this is kind of the first step in that direction, but I don't think we're there yet, where we can actually like swap heads, especially on animals of different ages or old animals. Old animals are probably more problematic because just the ability to heal after such a huge insult to the body for old animals might be a problem. But eventually, I think we'll get there, and we'll have our answer maybe within the next couple of years. But at YouthBio, we're not doing the replacement paradigm. We're very focused on partial reprogramming, and this is something I have other people figure out while we do our brain rejuvenation studies.
I was just wondering if you remember how we met.
At Vision Weekend?
Yes, we were on a panel. It was myself and Yuri and Leon Peshkin. We were on a panel talking about AI for longevity and our various work in this field. And I was remembering the conversations we had on that panel also about, the ground zero work that's been done at Harvard. And obviously this is inspiring to many of us in the field, that a 20-year-old egg can be reset to zero. I'm wondering if you could talk about if you find this also as moving as I do. Why do you find it moving, and how does this tie into how you think about reprogramming?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And this kind of ground zero reset of aging, or germline age reset, as sometimes it's also called, is basically this mystery of life, how with every new baby, aging is reset. And so what are the mechanisms that allow us to essentially get rejuvenated with every new baby? Because as a mother, at least in mammals, what happens is all your egg cells, your oocytes, they are being placed when you're still an embryo yourself, like a female is still an embryo, and basically all of the eggs that the female will turn into babies, they're the same age as the mother. So if the mother is, say, 30 years old when the egg is fertilized, the egg is also 30 years old, and it has potentially accumulated some damage, as some other cells in the body do. But after it's fertilized, it's fully rejuvenated, all the damage is cleared, and a new baby is born with age zero. And so the question, how does that happen, has been fascinating me for a long time. And also, I think this fascination is shared by Leon Peshkin, and we also talked about this for many years ago. And this is also, this germline reset is actually a process that is tied to partial reprogramming, because some of the processes that happen during embryogenesis is essentially what reprogramming is. So basically, you take a cell and you reprogram it using the factors that are the very same factors that not only maintain the stemness of the stem cells, the embryonic stem cells that give rise to all of the cells in our body, and of course these stem cells are produced after fertilization, but also the factors, the transcription factors that drive reprogramming are the same transcription factors, SOCT4 and SOX2, that trigger this maternal to zygotic transition at very early stages of embryogenesis, that could potentially be also starting this rejuvenating subprogram that rejuvenates this old fertilized cell and is responsible for making the baby of age zero. And so what I think is happening with at least initial stages of reprogramming that we're trying to use for partial reprogramming is that it's starting the same rejuvenation subprogram that's reserved by life for reproduction, the same rejuvenating subprogram that is executed during early stages of embryogenesis. And so this is all like what tied for me into partial reprogramming and rejuvenation by partial reprogramming, that got me really interested in this process. And I think that at least some of this rejuvenation that we see with partial reprogramming is driven by the same processes that we see during embryogenesis that are resetting aging for after every new fertilization.
I'm curious, especially with this partial reprogramming in a somatic setting. So again, targeting older people with Alzheimer's, for example. What's your vision? What's your end goal in terms of solving that through partial reprogramming? Is it going to be therapies, through routine therapy and somatic therapies every now and then, like monthly cycles just for prevention and then continually doing that reprogramming? Is that kind of the end game for what you're planning?
Well, for Alzheimer's, yeah, our kind of the best case scenario is reversing the pathology in patients who already been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so if our therapy kind of works as we best hope, is that once we start activating it, and this therapy that we have it's a single injection of our gene therapy that's off by default, but then we give an activating molecule to the patients, and this is what starts the partial reprogramming process. And then we stop, and then there's a certain washout period in between cycles, and then we repeat the cycle. And our ultimate goal would be, by using this periodic rejuvenation, we can bring the patients back to a more functional state, essentially reversing the Alzheimer's pathology. If that doesn't happen, even slowing down their progression to like more severe Alzheimer's would be a good result, both for us and for the field, because the current standard of care in Alzheimer's is really low. So you have these monoclonal antibodies against beta amyloid that's been recently approved, and their effectiveness in slowing down the progression of Alzheimer's is very minimal. And also they have sometimes quite strong side effects, severe side effects, brain swelling, brain bleeding, and yet they're approved. Patients are taking them. They're cost a lot of money, but yet patients are happy because they didn't, before the monoclonal antibodies, they didn't really have anything that has any marginal effectiveness in slowing down Alzheimer's. So even if we accomplish that goal and don't accomplish our ultimate goal of reversing pathology, but just slowing down pathology, that's already better for the patients. And of course, from a financial standpoint, that could make our therapy a blockbuster therapy, because the current therapies, this monoclonal antibodies, are on track to become blockbusters with like billion-dollar revenues within a few years. So, but ultimately, of course, we'd love to reverse the pathology, and for Alzheimer's. But ultimately, for the company, we want these therapies to be used as prophylactic therapies that healthy people could use to prevent the onset of any pathology, to prevent any cognitive decline, and to basically reverse aging to a degree, or to a state that we actually want to reverse it to. Like, ultimately, of course, it'd be great to have everybody at like biological age of 25, and the brain is just one organ that we want to target. But like I mentioned in the beginning, our ultimate goal is a combination therapy where we're targeting multiple organs that give systemic rejuvenation and reduce our biological age systemically in our organism, and basically keep our organism younger and younger state. And this what essentially would reverse our biological age and keep us younger and reduce our mortality risk and the risk of getting all sorts of age-related diseases.
So, assuming the best possible result, so let's say it actually fully halts Alzheimer's and even starts to reverse it. Could you imagine in our lifetime Alzheimer's becoming a disease that is manageable and that people no longer directly die from, in the same way that we have seen this happen with HIV and other diseases?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, this is what happens with many things that once you have a therapy for something, you look back and you kind of recoil at what suffering you could have avoided. And yeah, HIV is definitely one example, but even like some infectious diseases, or even before antibiotics. With antibiotics, some of the diseases that currently we think are very mild diseases, people used to die from them. and now you just take a course of antibiotics and you barely notice them. But yeah, basically, if this therapy works as we hope, and we can reverse Alzheimer's pathology, then the millions of people suffering from Alzheimer's right now will become better, and many more millions that are right now kind of on track to get Alzheimer's will never get it. So.
What are your thoughts on brain uploading as another form of seeking life extension?
I'm all for it. I'm all for all approaches to circumventing aging, or even circumventing the fragility of biology. I think our personalities, we're just prisoners of our current biology that got developed here not for our benefit. We're just replicators for our gene sets, right? And gene sets don't really care about our personalities. They just want us to pass our genes and then just die off and kind of continue the cycle of generations. But of course, each and every personality takes exception to that and would not want to be just a replicator for the genes. We want our personality to actually continue living for as long as we want. And unfortunately, right now we are hostages of our biology. We get sick, we get all sorts of inconvenient biological processes that we maybe would rather not. And so it'd be great to just leave biology behind and transplant our consciousness into somewhere else, somewhere more durable, somewhere more enjoyable, where we can just continue existing as personalities without having to endure this meat machine that we need to take care of right now on a daily basis. And I think gradual mind uploading is one way we can do that. And gradual is the key here, because it's all about how you experience this transition. Because I agree with people who say, like, one-shot mind uploading is not really going to be you. It's just going to be a copy of you living somewhere else. And at the worst case, maybe that's good enough if for you suffer some catastrophic death, and then you can somehow recover your consciousness and transplant it. But in the best case scenario, I view it as basically this kind of growth and development that we experience as humans, growing from children to adults gradually, and we see this continuity that you still feel that you're the same person as you were when you were 3 years old or 10 years old, but of course right now you're a completely different individual. And with gradual mind uploading, this will be just a continuation of your personal growth, where you start, your brain and your personality would start co-inhibiting both the current brain and somewhere else, and then eventually you will gradually transition to this somewhere else, and all your core memories and your personality traits will then be kind of living or inhabiting that space, and you might at that point no longer need to be connected. Or if you do suffer this catastrophic event to your brain, your personality will persist in this new substrate. I don't know, in silico or whatever. But of course, we're not there yet, because we haven't yet replicated exactly how the brain works in silico. And I don't know if it's a requirement. Do we need to fully replicate, or maybe just with the current technology we'll be able to emulate enough of our personalities and brain processes in silico that we will still feel as if this is a new vessel of our personality, of our consciousness, that we can just upload ourselves or merge with, in terms of like merging with machines with, and still feel that we're the same person. So hopefully I didn't get too deep into the weeds.
No, that's perfect. I hadn't thought of it until you said it, but depending on which day of the week it is, some days I wake up and I'm in a grumpy mood all day, and please don't do my one-shot snapshot for my brain that day. Other days I wake up and I'm endlessly optimistic about the progress that humanity is making in all of these various frontier fields, and I hope to but it's good to also have both. So I really like what you said about kind of the partial upload. I'm a big fan of mind upload as well. I think it's great that many people are working on this in neurotech and all kinds of brain enhancements in general. I did have a thought the other day, like, what do you do if you're an uploaded brain and you get depressed because you can't just go out for a run?
Well, I think once we are uploaded or inhibiting some sort of in silico medium, we'll have much better tools to analyzing what our emotional makeup and the processes that do result in our feelings and emotions, and so we'll have much better tools at correcting things that we would rather get rid of, and depression being one of them, or some kind of primate personality traits like aggression, which probably humans could do without, or at least with much lower levels of, and so we'll be able to actually improve ourselves, improve our personalities much easier, rather than having to take antidepressants and have these very non-granular tools, very kind of heavy-handed approaches right now, with just the inhibit uptake of serotonin and hope that this actually makes you not depressed and doesn't give too many side effects. If your actual consciousness is now in in silico setting, I think you'll have much better ability to modulate it and figure and debug it and actually fix it.
So I'm going to change gears a little bit. I was thinking about what you said earlier about how we are prisoners of our own biology. Yeah. And it reminded me, just last week I was on a tour of a very interesting robotics company that does precision medicine work. And it's a bunch of, as you can imagine, mechanical engineers who work with scientists. And one of them, he expressed some frustration. He said, well, you know how biology is. Biology, it's black magic. It's not like engineering where you build a robot and it works the same way every time. And, I think, I was curious, do you ever get frustrated at this aspect of biology?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it is spaghetti code. Like evolution is yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even my quote. Yeah, it's definitely been a known quote in biology circles, and there's a lot of stochasticity to biological systems, and they're very complex systems. There's like a lot of variability. So everybody's who works with biology would love to have the systems be as precise as like computer chips, but unfortunately they're not, and we have to make do with what we got. But biology is very messy, and I think this is actually where a lot of people transitioning from like computer science or tech fields stumble upon. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna come back to biology and tackle all these problems that biologists couldn't solve because they're not as, I don't know, smart as me. And then they just, turns out it's not that the biologists aren't smart. It's just like the problem is much less tractable as tech people anticipate. And I think, but unfortunately, we have to make do with what we got.
Well, something I really like about people like you who come from computer science to biology is that because you're so used to achievable problems, you come in with endless optimism and drive. Would you please leave us with a final note of hope for humanity?
Well, I can try. Not to put a damper, but definitely I think a lot of the initial optimism in people who transition to longevity from other fields stems from their ignorance. They really kind of overestimate maybe their ability or underestimate the complexity of biology in general and aging biology in particular, because aging is very well protected, I think, evolutionarily. Evolution kind of really through trial and error, I think, over millennia, really perfected all the safeguards that protect against cheaters in lifespan. Because I think one cheater who kind of breaks the lifespan problem, the life history problem, and really lives for much longer could really mess up the whole ecosystem. But not to get off track in terms of hope, I mean, I'm still very optimistic in our ability as humanity to solve aging. And just because we are intelligent creatures and intellect is our secret weapon or super weapon that we can deploy against this spaghetti code and debug it and find out ways to hack it and even to circumvent it eventually. Because I think this is kind of the ingenuity of humans as engineers. If we find some problems too complex, we just find ways around them, like with AI and machines, and eventually, I think with mind imploding, this is where things are going. We're just gonna rather than try to debug this really messy code, we're just going to circumvent and not need to do so anyways by just finding ways to transition our consciousness, transition our personality into more durable vessels eventually. So eventually, I'm very optimistic that humanity will solve the problem of aging. But even within the confines of biology, I think we have good reason to believe that within the next couple of decades, we'll have just biological therapies that can really do something in terms of prolonging our lifespan and prolonging our youth span, as I say, for many millions of people with the therapies like partial reprogramming or maybe other approaches like replacement before this technology for like the next stage of mind uploading or something else is yet ready for mainstream. And so that in general, this is what makes me optimistic that we'll get there. I think if we can stay alive for a couple of decades, I think the technology that we'll see coming down the pike is going to be fascinating and really transformative for the entire planet.
Thank you so much again, Yuri, for coming all the way from Toronto. We loved having you here at Longevity San Juan, and we hope you'll come again.
Yeah, thanks, Yuri.
You've been listening to the Longevity Current with Tom and Aleks, a Longevity San Juan production. Tune into our website at longevitysanjuan.com and please subscribe.